Hi, this is Mr. Ford from MrFordsClass.com, and we're going to discuss briefly the body cavities. Actually, I prefer the term body cubbyholes because that's what these are. If you remember from elementary school, cubbyholes were where you put your lunchbox, your shoes, your jackets. Basically, they were containers or open areas where you'd put stuff to contain it. And your cubbyhole was different than the person's next to you cubbyhole. It held different stuff. Well, unfortunately, as you'll find out as you go through A&P and other medical classes, the medical profession requires a certain dignity as far as discussing different terms. And no one will pay you a doctor's wage or a nurse's wage or any other health profession's wage if you call them body cubbyholes. So we refer to them as body cavities. And there are two main divisions. There is the ventral or front cavity, okay, we call it the ventral cavity, and we have the dorsal cavity. This is the back part. Let's look at the ventral cavity first. The first cavity is the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity, of course, is where the ribs live. And underneath the ribs, if we were to pull them apart, don't worry, Oscar doesn't mind here, you have the lungs, make sure I'm touching the right thing here, the lungs and the heart. The other cavity is the abdominal pelvic cavity. We can subdivide this into two sections, the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. But again, if we want to be lazy, we can just combine it into the abdominal pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity contains the stomach and the intestines. So it is this area right here. The pelvic portion of this, or the pelvic cavity, is further down. This contains the lower intestines as well as reproductive organs. So this is the ventral cavity. Most anatomy classes I've seen will actually ask you what organs are found in each of the cavities. So be familiar with the cavity as well as what typical structures you find within it. Now, let's look at the dorsal cavity. The dorsal cavity, again, is the back part, and it's made of two separate areas. The cranial cavity and the vertebral cavity. The cranial one's easy, holds the brain. You remove the skull, there's your brain, cranial cavity. The vertebral cavity contains the spinal cord. Now, Oscar here doesn't let us break apart his back, so we really can't see it. But if we could, you would see a bunch of vertebrae going down the back. This is the vertebral cavity. So, once again, know your cavities, know your ventral cavity, know your dorsal cavity, know what's in each of these cavities, and you should be okay as far as this goes. So I hope this helped you out, and we'll see you for our next presentation.